Say hello to the Dragon Warrior! That actually works. Hello and welcome to the table, and today I'm going to be talking about Thane, if it'll load, Thane Dragai of Blades, and man, this guy, I'm surprised. Thank you, first off, 3 Floating. You have completely inspired me to rework this deck because I had a version that I was proud of, but now thanks to you at 3 Floating, just gotta shout you out again. This deck I think is way better because of the stuff that I've added and tweaked and changed. But yeah, let's talk about Thane, the 3-in-1 budget bridge champion version of Thane. And yeah, this deck has one game plan: Obsidian Fire Vein. Fire Vein. And basically attacking with it, buffing it to the moon, giving it a power buff and go again, marking the opposing hero, and if you hit with Thane, you make fealty tokens, and once you have 3 fealties, these daggers cost nothing, and then you can attack with them again and again and again and again. Now, for the first 2 versions, the budget version and the bridge version, there is kind of a combo portion of the deck in the sideboard, but when you get to the champion version, I don't think that version is just powerful enough. I mean, the flurry stances, the oath of loyalties, in addition to some other cards in the actual main deck, like agility stance and power stance, those can all kind of work together to create a really powerful combo version of Thane. But I just feel like the absolute best version of Thane doesn't really need to worry about these. But in the early versions of Thane, the cheaper versions of Thane, this version can still be very powerful and compete at armories. So I just want to point that out. But this deck primarily is just a big value stupid deck that can combo again and again and again with Obsidian Fire Vein. Now you may ask, how do you do that? Well, basically, tons of attack reactions. And this isn't an attack reaction, but tons of attack reactions and tons of draconic cards, playing them, getting value off of them, making sure that Obsidian Fire Vein can go wide, and then make those fealties and those marking of heroes to then hit and make more fealties and just attack with Obsidian Fire Vein for nothing. I mean, this deck has not a ton of resources. It's got yellows and then some blues, but it's like 15-ish resources. I mean, this card is a yellow, so it's 4 blues, 1 yellow, and just a bunch of red cards. Most of them cost 0. There are some that cost 1. A card that I do really like is Imperial Intent, because a lot of your draconic attack reactions say, if if you control 2 or more draconic chain links, create whatever, like in Affirm Loyalty's case, create a fealty token. Well, you really want to have that second draconic chain link to get the full value out of something like an Affirm Loyalty. So in all the versions, I have cards that kind of like, it doesn't really matter when you play them. They just get you like good value no matter what. Something like an Imperial Intent, because if you're attacking with a draconic chain link, which you're only attacking with draconic chain links. This is a draconic card, and in your Obsidian Fire Veins are draconic cards. So this card is always going to cost 0 resources. And then something like a, where is it at? Blistering Blade, even though it's giving a +2 power buff instead of a +3 power buff, if you're buffing that on the Obsidian Fire Vein, you're basically getting a +3 power buff anyways because of the Obsidian Fire Vein buffing himself. So there is that too. But yeah, this deck, very simply, just pitch a little bit when you need to, and then chain links with the draconic chain links of the Obsidian Fire Veins, and then just buff them and get value off of them. Mark the opposing hero. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's a very simple game plan, and it can work. It can surprisingly work. Now, while there are a lot more 2 blocks in this deck than the average warrior deck, which does kind of stink for Thane, because, you know, warriors, part of their whole thing is like, well, worst case scenario, I can just block with my 3 blocks. Well, a lot of your reactions are not 3 blocks. But to be fair, you do want to play those, so there is some amount of reason to, yeah. Anyways, it does stink that a lot of your cards are 2 blocks. So do keep that in note and in mind when playing this deck. And for the sideboard, I mean, I've already talked about some of these cards, but basically the sideboard is fixing that issue with Sink Blows and Smokeouts being your defense reactions that you can side in when you need to be a little bit more defensive when you need to against a deck that's going to be more aggressive than you, or a deck where you're just going to need those defense reactions. I'm talking about Assassins here because, you don't really want those guys to hit, especially if they're marking you or if they're Arachne, or just any Assassin in general. There always seems to be some really dumb on hit that you just do not want to hit. So Smokeouts and Sink Blows can save your butt in that sense. And speaking of Assassins and Arachne, hunt to the ends of Wraith, because Arachne and Fane do not get along. Fane has a chance to beat Fane, or to beat Arachne, but not much of one. So Hunt to the Ends of Wraith can be very helpful in that sense, because you attack with the Hunt, immediately mark them, and now it's a 0 for 4. With Go Again, if it hits, you get a fealty token off of Fane. If not, it's just going to allow you to that much more easily hit with one of your daggers and then make a fealty. So that card's really good against Fane. And then Blaze Headlong, just another way. If you need to be more aggressive or you just need more attacks, you need to depend on something more than just your daggers, Blaze Headlong can be very helpful if you side out the Pledge Fealties or something like that. And Provoke. If you need some interaction, just some more interaction, just side out one of the blues, like a Scar Tissue or likely a Knife Through Butter, and then put that in the deck, and you're good there. This deck, very, pretty powerful, honestly, for, the budget version. I mean, obviously, it's not as powerful as the other versions, or the other decks that I've covered, Arachne Marionette and Syndra. It's still very powerful, though. I am surprised with how good this deck is, because when it was first released, I'm like, oh my god, combo deck, the Dragon Warrior, it's gonna be insane. And it hasn't really proven to be as strong as I wanted it to, but recently I've discovered, you know what? This deck actually does have resources to compete, and this version, even at the cheapest level, is surprisingly powerful. I mean, yeah. But if you want a more midpoint entry point into Fane, you want to spend a little bit of money, but not a ton of money, to get a really solid version of Fane. Let's talk about the bridge version, which is a pretty big upgrade. A little bit in price, but more so in power. It is $140 now instead of $50, but for bridge versions, I kind of want them to be between $100 and $150, and I still think it's very fair considering how much better this version is than the first version. So, why is that? Well, this card's a pretty big reason. Savor Bloodshed is a stupidly powerful card, let me tell ya. This card kind of is a 0 for 4 in a sense. I mean, it's buffing your dagger, sure, but it's a 0 cost 4 power buff to your Obsidian Fire Vein, and then in addition to that, if the opponent's marked the next time you hit them, you get to draw a card with Savor Bloodshed. So in a weird sense, this is kind of like a Snatch with Go Again, which is really cool and powerful, might I add. So yeah, another reason why this card is just a little bit good, not busted by any means, wink wink, but it's just a little bit good. In addition to that, Oath of Loyalty is a really powerful card in this deck as well, because, I mean, it's a 0 for 4 Go Again. That's good. It starts the ball rolling for, you getting those Draconic Chain Links, and it makes it that much easier, like I brought up a little bit in the last version of the deck, to make these Affirm Loyalties, and these Blistering Blades, and these Endear Devotions, and most of your attack reactions in this deck get immediate value, or the most value possible. You play the Oath of Loyalty, that's one Draconic Chain Link, you attack with your Obsidian Fire Vein, and then, boom, play something like an Affirm Loyalty, you get the buff, and a fealty token. So yeah, very powerful card. Sure, you can only play Draconic cards for the rest of that turn, but you have pretty much all Draconic cards. The only non-Draconic card that you are ever going to be playing is Savor Bloodshed. That is something to look out for, but I still think it is incredibly worth it to have Oath of Loyalty in this deck for that reason. For making it easier for your stuff to get full value, I mean. And then the sideboard is a little bit different. There are basically one addition, but it is a very good addition because Jagged Edge. If you don't know, Enigma is a deck that exists, and a really powerful one too. And this card says, you know what? You know how you love to prevent damage? You know how you really want me to not hit you so that I can't make fealty tokens? Well, I'm going to play this, and my Thane is going to get a little bit of a buff and can't be prevented. The damage that this would deal cannot be prevented by your stupid cards anymore, so that's fun. And oh, by the way, if I'm reading this wrong, leave a comment down below, but this says, this doesn't say until the end of turn, or for this attack. This is for the whole turn, I believe. It gets a +3 power buff for the turn, and damage by that dagger cannot be prevented for the rest of that turn. So, if you have a way to attack with that dagger in an additional time, who knows, then you can hit multiple times, and if the opponent's marked when you do that, well, boom, that could be 2 fealty tokens for you off of Thane. So that's something that's pretty cool, and something I just want to point out. But yeah, beyond that, the bridge version is pretty much the same, but it adds a lot of power in those cards that are being added, and it just makes the deck so much more efficient and fluid and actually compete in matchups where it would otherwise just kind of suffer. But it is not the best version of the deck, and if you want the best version and you want to spend nearly $1,000 on Thane, which I would not recommend unless you really like Thane and you've at least tried a version of Thane that's cheaper, then the champion version is the deck for you. So let's talk about it. And to put it simply, this version is based a lot off of the 3 floating version. So again, shout out to all of you for inspiring me to rework this deck and get it to where it is now, because it is way more powerful than before. And yeah, so something that I completely forgot about existed is Blade Flurry. Another card that doesn't really synergize super well with, Oath of Loyalty. Doesn't synergize super well with that, but Blade Flurry is still a busted card because it's a 0-for-4 attack reaction, which, those are pretty powerful, if you don't know. And it buffs, you know, 1 dagger by 2, and it buffs the next thing that you're attacking with by 2 as well, so it's kind of like spread out 4 damage, which is kind of better in a sense in a deck like this, where it wants to hit multiple times to make fealty tokens as much and as often as it possibly can. So there is that too. But beyond Blade Flurry, there are more upgrades to the deck, obviously. And you saw the equipment, very big upgrade. But as you scroll down, you see the sideboard, which, yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean, there's Kabuto of Imperial Authority, which against any of the hunted decks, which are pretty popular right now. I mean, there's still the part of the Mistveil decks. I've mentioned Enigma already, but those are pretty popular too. But against the hunted decks, especially if you're facing against another Thane or assassins like Arachne Marionette or Syndra, obviously, Kabuto of Imperial Authority is busted because it says, hey, you know those wonderful weapons that you love to attack with? No, you can't attack with them. No, you don't get to. Stop it. Stop touching them and doing stupid things with them. No, you can't attack with your Hunter's Clave anymore, Arachne. But yeah, Kabuto of Imperial Authority, absolutely insane card against any deck, especially warrior decks that care about weapons. In addition, you got a pretty busted card in Shelter to Storm. I mean, this card is one of the best cards in the game now because, I mean, generic D-reacts that block for 4 are already pretty powerful, and flexible ones, yeah, they are pretty powerful too. There's a reason that this card costs like $70 right now, I believe. But yeah, in addition to that, 2 copies of Loyalty Beyond the Grave instead of Smokeout. Smokeout was a 3 of, but this is a 2 of, because that card, that all you got, is in the deck now too. But Loyalty Beyond the Grave is a really good card because if you slot them both into the deck, you can block with one of them for 3 once, another one for 3 once. If you need to react, because, you know, assassins exist, and there are tons of decks that, like warriors, buff at reaction speed. But Loyalty Beyond the Grave, if you get them both into the yard, you can banish them and draw a card. So, in a deck that wants as much value as possible and as many cards as possible to take advantage as much as possible, this card can be pretty good. But that all you got is still better, which is why it's a 3 of and this is not. And that all you got is that much better because, one, it takes advantage of you defending against stuff like Syndra. Decks that are just attacking with little tiny things, just swinging little tiny pecks of damage at you. Or against assassins like Arachne Marionette that are swinging that little tiny dagger. Or against, what's it called? Just another Feign deck that's swinging with their little tiny dagger. And this card, you block with it, and then boom, you get to draw a card. Like, what? That's insane. And it's blocking for 3 at reaction speed, and it's a yellow. So that's on rate, technically. I mean, reds want to block for 4. And if you go down the chain, yellow, block for 3, that's still on rate. But yeah, that all you got is an absurd card. And as you go up, the main, big, massive difference is the equipment. The equipment is way more efficient than before. I mean, the equipment that I had for the other 2 versions, like Fleetfoot Sandals, was actually a really surprisingly good card for budget versions of Feign because it guarantee gives you go again on your Obsidian Fire Vein, which is really powerful. It doesn't block for anything, sure, but it's still really good. But this suite of equipment is just way better. First off, Braid Forge Bracers. I mean, this card blocks for 2, then it blocks for 1, and it can buff your weapon by 1 power multiple times throughout the game. I mean, what else do you want? It's one of the best arm pieces that Warrior has access to. Maybe the best Warrior piece that Warriors have access to. In addition, Crown. I mean, it's the counter to CNC, which is just the best card in the game. So there's that too. And then Valiant Dynamo. I mean, in a deck, in any Warrior deck, where you have 2 one-handed weapons, and you have Valiant Dynamo, you're just attacking with both little things, and you refresh the damage, or the -1 counter on Valiant Dynamo. And you attack with both of the daggers, and you refresh the -1 defense counter on Valiant Dynamo. You just get 1 block out of it, for free, every turn. I mean, that's busted. That's just busted. And in addition, you got the MVP of the deck, Grains of Blood Spill. This card is absurdly good. I mean, it blocks for 2 temper. It doesn't have Battle Worn, so you can only block for 2 and then for 1, and it does get destroyed, but it does give you a lot of value while it does stick around. Because whenever a weapon attack you control hits, you can spend 1 and you get a resource. Basically, because the Vigor says at the start of your turn, it pops, and then you get a resource. So in a deck that doesn't want to pitch as often later in the game, because the Obsidian Fire Veins will cost 0 Feign, and you just want to get the most damage in possible with all of the reds in your deck, then this card is insane. Because if you don't have any resources and you need like 1 resource for your Endeared Devotion, and everything else, including your daggers, costs nothing because you have the 3 fealties for Feign, then boom, Grains of Bloodspill. It gives you that resource. And if you draw clunky hands throughout the game, because there are more reds in this deck than the average deck, because it's a Draconic deck, then don't worry, you got a clunky hand. You get a free resource at the start of your turn if you spent a resource, invested it into Grains of Bloodspill last turn. And then boom, you can have a less clunky hand and then go wider and do more with your deck. So yeah, this card, absolutely absurd. And this deck, this version of the deck especially, it is $930, nearing 1,000, but it is really powerful. But the other 2 versions I've talked about are really powerful as well. They are really surprising to me just how good they are. I mean, this equipment suite and some of the stuff in the sideboard, like Shelter the Storm, that all you got. I mean, the generic staples do make this deck function a lot more smoothly. But even in the previous versions of the deck that I've listed, if you do want to get into Feign and you do want to play them at a good competitive level, those versions are still really good and powerful too. But with all that aside, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It's completely free and regrets. Hope you're all enjoying the Hunted and cannot wait for High Seas as much as I can because, I mean, it's pirates. Who doesn't love pirates? But have a great rest of your day, everybody, and enjoy.